On Saturday, I had the Nyakast with Vio, and we talked about being a leftist in the VTuber space and like streaming space in general, and like how frustrating it is to be seen as controversial the moment you say that you stand up for trans rights. If you are a VTuber, if you're a content creator, and you're doing something that is like considered political, especially if you're not, like a leftist, you'll be seen as controversial, and people will distance themselves from you. They will, in private, support you. A lot of VTubers are really woke, they're part of the LGBTQ and so on. A lot of VTubers will support you, but they won't actually actively engage with you. Unless, you know, it's, I don't know, on TwitchCon, for instance. On the right, if you're transphobic and so on, you're also being seen as controversial, and a lot of like these content creators who are seen as like apolitical and whatnot, they will obviously not interact with them. But the difference between those on the left that are considered controversial and those on the right that are considered controversial is that the media empire of the right will boost controversial streamers on the right. Like all of these like right-wing Gamergate type of like podcasts, they will pick up all of the grifters, the VTubers that are, you know, pushing like racism and so on. They will also like throw a lot of money at them, right? People on the right have, generally speaking, more money. It's also like being boosted by billionaires on the platforms, shaping the algorithm to boost this form of like controversy. They will farm like these clip moments where they're going to be like, haha, I hate all gay people, and then it's going to be like a snippet. It's going to be posted on Twitter, on socials, on TikTok and whatnot, and a lot of people interact with that. It attracts drama, and a lot of like these clippers only do this for like right-wing content creators. They don't really do this when it comes to like leftists. It feels like we're just entirely being ignored. If you say leftist things, people will just, you know, be like, oh, you're being too political right now. You're too divisive. You said trans women are women. That makes you divisive. Oh my God. I cannot associate with you. And there's no network to like boost you, to amplify you, to pick you up. You have reactionaries. Jump on anyone who supports LGBTQ people. You have reactionaries, radicalize people, and get them to jump and harass anyone who calls out their hypocrisy, who calls out racists, right? You saw that with like the Hogwarts Legacy type of thing. Anyone who was like, hey, you know, if you're a mutual of mine and you're playing this game that is being used in order to fund all of the anti-trans legislation in the UK and worldwide, I don't want to be friends with you. And you have like all of these reactionaries be like, oh my God, look at you doing cancel culture. Oh my God. And it's essentially like people just being bullied into silence by reactionaries. And it's so frustrating to continuously see this. There's like no money in it for you if you're just being a good person. There's nothing to be gained. You are essentially losing a lot of things, especially, you know, as a VTuber, a lot of them are very corporate, where the only political opinion that is allowed in the space is like right-wing stuff. Things that to the average mind are just being seen as like common sense, that are just essentially rooted in like far-right propaganda, in misinformation, and it's being portrayed as like that's just the normal opinion. But once you're like calling this out, you're dismantling that and so on, then it's like, oh, now you're making it political. It's essentially how if you see a video game character and you have a male, cis, straight, white protagonist, people are going to be like, oh yeah, it's just a cis white male protagonist. But the moment you have somebody who is trans, somebody who's gay, then it's like, oh, now it's political, now it's DEI and so on. Because they think that like cis white male is like the baseline, and any deviation from that, that is making it political. They don't realize that the fact that they think that cis straight white male is like the baseline, that is inherently political as well. That is like caused by the patriarchy, by all of like these systemic issues and so on. And you try to explain that to people who are so brainwashed and are incapable of like reevaluating their worldview, then you're being seen as like, oh, you are making it a problem. You're the one throwing the stones and you're the one harassing these innocent poor racists who just want to spread their bigoted opinions. The reality of this space is that reactionaries will look out for other people who normalize these talking points. They will boost them, they will give them money, they bought their viewers, their platforms, they have like entire ecospheres and so on, media networks, constantly just posting these things in their own little like circle jerk. On the left, you don't even have like a niche community that is like there to boost you. On the left, we're pretty divisive on a lot of things, right? Right-wingers always act like the left is a cult, but in reality, you know, right-wingers are a cult. They are submitting to authority figures. And on the left, we have a lot of like purity testing. We have a lot of like internal fights. And on the right, you say anything bigoted and people will just like platform and boost you. On the left, when you're saying things that are factually correct in support of like trans rights, people will just like distance themselves from you because even if they agree with you, they don't want to be a target of like these reactionaries. Essentially creating this permission structure where you're not allowed to speak up unless you're saying something right-wing. Because people don't realize how their silence is also supporting what is ultimately happening due to their inaction. The world is drifting further and further right-wing. It's getting more and more fascist. Everybody's suffering more. If you don't speak up, you're just supporting a shift in society. If you see people who want to push against that, and you're like, oh yeah, I support you behind the scenes, you're sliding into the DMs, you're pressing like on their tweets. You don't even want to like follow them because, you know, you don't want to have like reactionaries go through your follow list and follow police you or something and attack you because of that. You're ultimately alienating those that are pushing back. You're harming those that are pushing back, even though you agree with them. And that's problematic. It's really bad in the VTuber space because, you know, a lot of like the industry is very catering towards like the right wing. The lonely, misogynistic young man. But then there's also the problem as like a leftist, a lot of this space is very capitalistic, you know? You also have like a social hierarchy here in like the streaming space. And if you're leftist and you're against these social hierarchies, against like the system that, you know, all of like these big streamers are profiting off, a lot of people don't like you. That's also why a lot of like liberal streamers have more issues with someone on the left than with someone on the right, because they view us as like, you know, an existential threat to them. And, you know, that is why there isn't really like a left-wing grift. There aren't billionaires funding like leftist streamers and so on. And it's so frustrating that like you just like speaking up for trans rights, for your own existence, sharing your own personal experiences in order to like help those that resonate with your own experiences. But that makes you controversial in this space to the point where people will just like cut you off, where it attracts so much hatred and harassment online that people are just going to be like, I don't want to deal with this. I need to block you because I don't want to see all of the negativity in your replies. So it really bothers me when people are like, oh my god, Nyara is left-wing grifting by saying all of these things. It's like, I'm a trans person. I know the amount of harassment I attract by standing up for trans rights, especially for trans kids. But I was a trans kid when I was young. I didn't have representation. I didn't have education. I didn't know why I was different. And I suffered through the wrong puberty. I lost my childhood, my teenage years to like gender dysphoria. And I wish I had somebody just tell me what being trans even was, so I had the words to describe my experience. And the fact that that statement alone attracts so much hatred that I become toxic to be around, to associate with, that is something that needs to change. That needs to be fixed. And it won't be fixed by just shutting up and letting right-wingers control this space even more than they already do.